Before we start this meeting, it is our finding that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent at this time. Due to the COVID-19 emergency, we're now conducting this meeting to be primarily virtual, pursuant to Section 7E of the Open Meeting Act. As required by law, at least one representative from the village will be present at the village hall to boardroom, and the village virtual meeting will be simulcast for members of the public who do not wish to view the virtual meeting from another location. The boardroom can only accommodate a limited number of people, including members of a public body and village staff, while maintaining 6 feet of social distance between individuals. Accordingly, the opportunity to view the virtual meeting at Village Hall is available on a first-come, first-served basis. This said, good evening and welcome to this February 14th, 2022, Valentine's Day, a meeting of the Bluff Village Board of Trustees. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Ankerman?
Here.
Trustee Briand?
Here.
Trustee Fisher?
Here.
Trustee Marquis?
Here.
Trustee Rappin?
Here.
And Trustee Ritter?
Here.
Thank you. Please stand and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States
of America.
and to the republic
to the republic for which it stands,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty and justice.
and justice for all. That's hard.
Thank you very much. Next is the consideration of the minutes of January 24th, 2022 Village Board virtual meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any changes, questions? Hearing none. Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Ankerman?
Aye.
Trustee Briand?
You're muted. I know. Aye.
Trustee Fisher?
Aye.
Trustee Marquis?
Aye.
Trustee Rappin?
Aye.
And Trustee Ritter?
Aye.
Thank you. Next, item number 5, non-agenda items and visitors. The village president and board of trustees allocate 15 minutes during this item for those individuals who would like the opportunity to address the village board of trustees on any matter not listed on the agenda. Each person addressing the village board of trustees is asked to limit their comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. So Drew and I are alone in this boardroom, so we probably will not have questions from this assembly. Do we have anybody online asking questions?
There are a few virtual attendees. I know one of them is here for one of the items on the consent agenda. The other, I believe, is a staff member from the library. So it doesn't appear there's no one's raising their hands to participate now, sir.
If we do not see hands raised.
I'll let you know if we do.
So let's proceed to the next agenda. Item number 6, Village Board sets the order of a meeting. The village president and board of trustees will entertain requests from anyone present on the order of business to be conducted during the village board meeting. We do not have requests.
No, sir.
So let's proceed with the current agenda. Item number 7, the village finance report. For the warrant report for January 25th to February 14, 2022, and January 22, 2022 payroll expenditures. As a summary of background and reason for request, we have expenditure of village funds for payment of invoices in the amount of $356,319.94 for January 25th to February 14th, 2022, and expenditure of village funds for payment of payroll in the amount of $304,553.59 for January 2022 for total expenditures of $660,873.53. You will find reports and documents attached, such as, number one, the warrant report for January 25th to February 14, 2022, again for $660,873.53, dated 1/25 to 2/14/2022. This invoice register report shows checks with a status of open or paid. All checks with a status of open are computer-generated checks for the board's final approval. Checks with a status of paid are checks processed manually. And number two, the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 payroll report. I did not ask for a motion to approve this warrant report.
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
I actually had a question that I meant to reach out to Drew, and I apologize I didn't. I just was curious about the expenses incurred for Amazon, and it looked like specifically it looked like COVID stuff. I'm trying to find the page number so I can direct everyone to page 2. Towards the bottom of page 2.
Yep.
And I'm just curious. First of all, I guess is this Amazon, as in we just ordered items from Amazon for like efficiency?
Yes.
And then, as far as the tests, are we eligible for reimbursement for those in some way? From the are they covered by the insurance policies or something along those lines?
So we did a bulk procurement, which most of those tests were, we did a pass through to the school district and the library. And we only ended up using a handful of those. And I'm trying to think of the timing of that, where that fits in for us to get reimbursement. But our own, I don't know, Bettina, if you have the actual dollar amount that the village ended up being responsible for of that number, or Glenn, I know you were coordinating that with the other taxing bodies, with their staff.
Yes, and I'm looking for that now. Trustee Fisher, I will say that those specific purchases on that Amazon account, those are 100% pass through to the library. So we gave some of the library's allocation to the schools. They had a bit more of an acute need. All of our, all the ones we have used by village staff were already paid in a prior warrant. I'm not aware of any reimbursement ability for these. I think that's gone now in favor of the cash we've received from less restricted cash from other sources, but Ms. O'Connell would be a better resource for that.
I think through our insurance program, there's a date, February, that we could get some,
I think so. The insurance program is based for specific individuals, so employees could seek reimbursement if they purchase after a certain date in February through their insurance company, I think up to $9. But as far as we are concerned, collectively having purchased those, it would fall under the monies that we've already received.
Thanks for the clarification, everybody.
Yep.
Sure.
Are there any other questions, guys?
So, and just so everybody knows, we did this as a measure because at the time, tests were hard to find. And we didn't want to be in a situation where we didn't want staff waiting if they were potentially had a close contact and they were hesitating because they couldn't get their hands on a test, and we wanted them to be able to, show up for a shift. We wanted to have tests available to try to ensure that we weren't incurring any additional costs, whether it be overtime or otherwise, or other inconveniences, just solely for the lack of putting their hands on a test. But that was it, sorry.
Last call for questions. So hearing none, clerk, please call the roll. Thank you.
Trustee Briand,
Aye.
Trustee Fisher,
Aye.
Trustee Marquis,
Aye.
Trustee Rappin,
Aye.
Trustee Ryder,
Aye.
and Trustee Yankoman.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, item 8 is our village administrator Irvin regarding future of a mosquito abatement program and concerning the disposition of certain village records.
Yeah, thank you. The first item is our staff has put together this draft RFP for us to put out on the street. This will be the first time the village is seeking to establish a mosquito control program, and we went back to the Lake Bluff Mosquito Abatement District as kind of a starting place for us to do so in terms of scope of services. They were a little bit modified because of the footprint changed, and it changed some of the quantities for which we would be seeking services by a vendors plural, hopefully. But this is really an informational item. I wanted to share with you all. We're going to get it in front of the Sustainability and Community Enhancement Committee and get their thoughts on that. We're also reaching out to the former president of the Lake Bluff Mosquito Abatement District and let her know this is what we're looking to do, and again try to secure services for this. There is money in the budget to proceed with these services. And I will say we're also expecting revenue from the dissolution of the existing Lake Bluff Mosquito Abatement District. We're waiting for that number. I think it could be as high as 6 figures that could go and offset the village's expenses for this for a handful of years. But we're still waiting to hear from the county on that. But fully trying to be prepared and ready to start these services by the new fiscal year. So if there's any comments, I'm happy to take those as we move this through the system. And if you would like to see it before it hits the streets, you're certainly welcome. But I think we just wanted to outline this practice and wanted to get it out on the street ASAP, and so that we can be ready come May 1.
And I would like to say also part of the thinking was to very much benefit from the experience of a mosquito abatement program with Sue Raymore as their lead, and a few other people I've had the chance to speak with, and so that we do not go forward without their experience and their basically feedback to what Drew is trying to achieve.
I did have a question about funding moving forward, because the mosquito abatement district did appear on our property taxes as a separate line item, and that will be going away. But those dollars that were collected and then used by that entity that included Lake Bluff and other entities as well, how does that ability to capture revenue for those, something that's going to be ongoing, more than just the next couple of years, that the funding that we will receive, we need to cover in perpetuity?
The village will have the choice in the come December, when the village approves its next levy, to increase its levy by its proportionate share of the levy that the mosquito abatement district once levied to provide these services. You'll have that choice to do so.
Got it. So it's going to be it's going to be something that we want to continue to maintain that level of service that we've provided through our residents, not through our direct actions, but through the funding into this larger group. So if we want to maintain that level, we're going to have to pay for it. And so this is going to give us the opportunity to say, let's keep the funding level where it was, because the expenses will continue at that same level. So it's just something to kind of plant in your head for when we go through the process all over again, the next, cycle of looking at the levy.
Drew, I just wanted to chime in from a sustainability and environmental standpoint. You and I chatted about this briefly earlier. I'd encourage everybody to kind of delve into the various methods of doing this, because spraying is the least desirable. I hope it's not the direction we take. Permethrin is the chemical that's used. It's highly toxic to bees and fish. and amphibians. So just from a sustainability standpoint, those are 3 different species already in crisis. So I hope when, we talk a lot about sustainability in this community, and I think this is one way to put our money where our mouths are. I understand issues with mosquitoes. They're a pest, although they are a food source for bats and a lot of other things. So we just have to be mindful of the harm we do when we're trying to abate something that's really no more than a pest, because it's just part of the cycle of life. And so that I just wanted to put that plug in there. It doesn't take much reading to find out how damaging this is. So I just hope we think about that when we're doing this, because the cost is one thing, and the fogging may be the cheapest, but there's a price to pay every time you do anything like this with chemicals. So that's my 2 cents.
I would like to add something to what you're saying, Kate, and thank you for saying that, because I think this is very important. So thank you very much. I learned in the process of looking at this and talking to a few people around me, to Sue and to Kate, that actually talking to my wife, but she has asthma. Every time we have a spray, she will hurt for the next 3 or 4 days. And she will be with her medication, aerosol medication, trying to cope with what we're spraying in the air. So it's also a matter of public health. So following to what Kate O'Connor, for example, told me, was their intent was natural and organic, so that we do not affect people and animals surrounding our vicinities. And so I have asked Drew, okay, what can we do with that? I mean, let's be sensitive to that. And so Drew has been dealing with our contractor to try to achieve that as well.
Okay, and so this will go down that path. It'll go to the SEC. We'll talk that. We'll put it out to bid. Right now, as it stands, it will include adulticide, but ultimately the village can choose whether or not to spray or not, right? I mean, that's always, we have to pay for it, put it in the contract, but you can elect to use it or not. And that's, I know that the Lake Bluff Mosquito Abatement District had a lot of hand wringing over that in the last few years and struggled with that too, so, which is not uncommon, so. The next item is, under my report, is the disposition of records. We periodically bring this list to you all, saying there's a number of documents that no longer, the village doesn't have a business need for them, and we will submit this list to the state of Illinois and to help ensure that to ensure that the records management section in the state archives approves the destruction of these documents. I will say, not typically, I did receive a request from a resident asking that the board not destroy these records, citing potential need of some litigation against some other agency. I asked for more information. I have not received it yet. That person subsequently submitted a Freedom of Information Act request to get copies of this information. I will tell you that it is certainly my plan not to, assuming the board approves this destruction, that I would not do that. Obviously, we're going to get the state's approval first, but also work with this resident to be responsive to this FOIA request. So if there's any problem or heartburn with that, please let me know. Otherwise, that's the action plan.
Drew, out of curiosity, were all of these categories of documents covered by the FOIA request?
Yes.
Drew, I was just curious how we decide what kind of documents we're getting rid of. Because we've seen this in a couple meetings now, lists of documents, and they seem kind of not random to me, but there doesn't seem to be I don't know if there's some sort of decision on age of documents or type of documents.
Yeah, there is this certain, what we submit to the state, we know is going to be, with rare exception, what we submit gets authorized by the state because we believe that it's the state requirement for maintaining of records based off their nature, we've satisfied that. So there is no legal requirement for the village to maintain these records first. And then the second tier is the process as we look at it is like, is there any business need for the village to maintain, for example, the list of business occupancy applications from 2009 to 2012, and we can't think of any. So we look at that, and the issue is at Village Hall is, and at Public Works and at all our facilities is we have very limited storage. And the idea of keeping these records ad infinitum doesn't make sense, and we really just don't have the capacity to do it. And so this is not necessarily a high priority matter for village staff, but we also know that there has been issues where the village was told by a structural engineer that we had to reduce the document load on the second story of Village Hall because it was too many documents. They said, you're stressing this building. So it can become a real problem. So we're trying to just chip away at this, and it is somewhat random. It's, Glenn goes to Public Works, or Carol, and they look at documents and they come across them. They're stored in mass, and they pull out a box and look at them and go through this. Have they been satisfied to meet the minimum requirements? Okay. We look at them. Is there any reason we'd want to keep these? And I guess one of the final tiers is that I didn't mention is, if it's something that we think is interesting, we say, hey, Lake Bluff History Museum, is this something of interest to you? Is this, so there is that element as well. But I mean, that's kind of our process that we go through.
And that for your request, how many documents would be basically scanned and provided to that resident? What are we talking about?
Well, right now, we're hoping to meet with this person because it is a large volume of documents to produce and copy. Our goal would be to sit down with that person and try to say, if you want to sit down and review these documents, tag what you want copies of, help us try to minimize the amount of staff time devoted to these activities, because we're, as a matter of law, we are required to respond within the parameters of the Freedom of Information Act and be responsive. At the same time, responses or requests for documents can't be categorical or unduly burdensome, so.
Okay.
Drew, can I just ask one follow-up question? Are we now, most of the documents we have now, I'm assuming are all electronic? We're storing electronically?
No.
Have we been
In
doing that?
fact,
No?
No, there's certain documents, yes, but not all documents, and that's what the category on the far right side of this, we're alerting you all. We wanted to make sure that was crystal clear, that we communicated to you all that staff does not have intentions to create digital copies of these documents.
Okay. We have the capacity, if something's important, to save electronically now, like, we're
Yes.
doing that?
Yeah,
Okay.
and the truth of the matter is, village staff are the primary users of these historical documents. I mean, behind us are all these documents and minutes of the village, and when we go out and research items, or we go back and review prior village policies or practices or actions, we are the primary users of the documents. So we are interested parties. So we don't have, we can't maybe necessarily assume that somebody may have some, we don't know, but anyway, that's our motivation.
Okay, thanks. No, that's all I was wondering. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So if there's no other direction otherwise, then that's what I'll do, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. No more questions? Thank you. Next is our village attorney's report. Mr. Friedman, do you have a report this evening?
No report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is the village president's report. I do not have a report as well tonight. Okay. And that would be followed by the consent agenda. The consent agenda tonight is item 11, acceptance of a correspondence. Please note that all correspondence was delivered to the Village Board of Trustees in the informational reports on January 21st and 28th and February 4th, 2022. Item 12, a resolution relocating the 2022 Village of Lake Bluff volume cap to the Village of Buffalo Grove, Illinois, the host community of the Lake County Private Activity Bond Clearinghouse. And item 13, a resolution approving assignment of and a transferee assumption agreement for license to install and maintain landscaping improvements at 45 East Center Avenue. Is there a request to remove any of these items from the consent agenda? And therefore, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda?
To approve, not accept, approve.
To approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Fisher,
Aye.
Trustee Markey,
Aye.
Trustee Rappin,
Aye.
Trustee Ryder,
Aye.
Trustee Yankoman,
Aye.
and Trustee Briand.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to other businesses, item 14, a resolution establishing the regular meeting and committee of the whole meeting dates for the Board of Trustees for fiscal year 2022 to 2023. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
So moved.
The resolution, I'm sorry. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Illinois statutes require the village board to provide notice of a regular schedule of meetings. In keeping with past practice, the proposed schedule establishes the regular meeting of a village board, 7 p.m. start time, on the second and fourth Monday of each month. Additionally, the proposed schedule also includes committee of the whole, meeting dates, 6 p.m. start time, for the same night as the regular meeting of a village board. Please note, the attached meeting schedule includes one meeting for the month of December, last meeting canceled due to proximity of holiday season, period. And while Columbus Day is one of 10 federal holidays that is not observed by the village board can meet on that date. Keeping with past practice, staff will, one, continue to designate the public safety building community room for significant COW meetings, and two, provide cancellation notices in the event that there is a lack of business for upcoming meetings. Are there any questions? Any comment on these dates? Hearing none. Questions? So hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Markey,
Aye.
Trustee Rappin,
Aye.
Trustee Ryder,
Aye.
Trustee Yankoman,
Aye.
Trustee Briand,
Aye.
and Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is item 15, a resolution authorizing and ratifying an agreement with Sikich LLP to provide independent audit services. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. The village regularly engages an independent auditor to perform a financial and compliance audit of the village's accounting system, including the Lake Bluff Library as a component unit of a village. In January 2009, the village solicited proposals from audit firms to provide independent audit services and approved an agreement with Sikich LLP of Naperville, Illinois, Sikich, to provide auditing services for fiscal year 2009 through 2014. In 2013. In 2014, the village renewed its engagement with Sikich for fiscal years 2014 through 2021 for an additional fee, largely due to an expanded scope of services to include certain compliance reports made necessary by the Grant Accountability and Transparency Act, 30 LCS 708, and subsequent. On December 22nd, 2021, Sikich proposed to expand their engagement for an additional 3-year term, so fiscal years 2022 through 2024, in the amount of $42,710, $43,991, and $45,310, respectively. On January 24th, 2022, the Finance Committee reviewed the proposal, discussed the services to be provided, and unanimously recommended that the village board continue to engage Sikich as an auditor. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees authorize an agreement with the auditor to perform the services for fiscal years 2022, 2023, and 2024. Questions? Here
Yeah, I have a question. Is there a, is there a general practice in public sector that a company, organization, entity change its auditors from time to time in order to double check, essentially, as I understand it, sort of some of the practices? I had thought that, and maybe Steve or others know better, that there was a sort of a accepted best practice of from time to time changing auditors. Not suggesting we do that this year, but I'm curious if that exists as a notion in public sector.
It is. And Bettina, if you want to talk about that, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
So I think Lake Bluff has made the conscious effort to do that from time to time, but we've also, we understand the shrinking number of providers in that universe, right? And the village also has an added nuance of one of the probably most likely competitors to our current provider is also providing the assistant finance director services for us. So we couldn't necessarily have the, fox look at the hen house necessarily. So we're conscious of that, but the village has, Trustee Ryder, so even within Sikich, switch partners responsible for our account and also switched the principal auditor within that switch over too, and we've had Dan do that for us, who's a partner, and now Martha has been that person. She's a partner, and so we've switched within the same shop to try to have that different set of eyeballs on it, if you will. And I'm trying to think of the village's most previous auditor. It's been some time though, but the village has had 2 auditors within the last 14 years. And I think the village, when you were part of that conversation, I think there was a desire to say, we're going to go this last 3 rounds and then we'll push it out.
Okay,
Put it out.
that's the plan.
Yep.
Yep.
So I have a
Thank you.
Yep.
So I have also a question to Bettina and Drew. The previous agreement was for 7 years, from 2014 to 2021, and now we have a 3-year agreement. And I see that this is a 3% increase of the initial amount of $42,710. Wouldn't we have a better deal? For example, if we were to say, okay, let's craft an agreement for maybe 5 to 7 years with a percentage that might be less than 3%, let's explore that.
So the last time we extended with Sikich, it was a 3-year term as well. I think it just kind of piggybacked the last extension, and it was the same type. It was flat the first year and 3% on the 2 outlier years. Certainly, if we go to RFP, we'd probably get a longer term in a contract. Typically, you get 5 to 7 years in a range with less of an increase as the years in that term occur.
Yeah, President Charlotte, I don't think the village, I think the direction that we were given was the idea was that we're going to go for a shorter term purposely because we're looking to put it out to bid and try to get a different set of eyes on it. So
Okay.
we weren't necessarily interested in a longer term.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Any more questions, trustees? So, hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Rappin,
Aye.
Trustee Ryder,
Aye.
Trustee Ankerman,
Aye.
Trustee Briand,
Aye.
Trustee Fisher,
Aye.
and Trustee Markey.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is a resolution authorizing the execution of a construction contract with a Flolo Corporation of Bensonville, Illinois, and waiver of competitive bids for the rebuilding of the Tangley Oaks Sanitary Lift Station Pump number 2. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
Resolution.
So moved.
A resolution, I'm sorry, is there so again, a motion to approve the ordinance?
Trustee Ankerman made the motion.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you. The Tangley Oaks Sanitary Lift Station was constructed in the early 1980s and collects sanitary sewage from the homes in the Tangley Oaks and Campbell Court subdivisions. The 3 pumps housed in the lift station pump the sewage into the North Shore Water Reclamation District's pipe on the south side of West Scranton Avenue. From there, the sewage travels through the sanitary district system to their treatment plant located in Highland Park. In the past 10 years, 2 of the 3 pumps have been rebuilt. The 3rd pump is now 40 years old and has never undergone significant repairs. The village asked for and received a quote from the Flolo Corporation to remove a pump from the lift station, examine the existing components, and recommend a schedule of repairs. While the cost of this initial work is $9,750, the total cost of repairs is expected to be around $45,000 based on the work that was required when pump number 3 was rebuilt in 2016. Due to the unknown number of repairs that will be needed and issues that arose by bidding the repairs to pump number 3, village staff believes it is in the best interest of the village to waive the competitive bidding process and hire the Flolo Corporation to remove, examine, and complete village engineer-approved repairs. The village fiscal year 2022 budget includes $25,000 for the Tangley Oak pump rebuild and $25,000 for general lift station improvements for a total of $50,000. The village engineer is recommending the waiver of competitive bidding and that the village board authorize work to be contracted with the Flolo Corporation for an amount not to exceed $45,000. Questions?
As a reminder, especially for the board members who were not here in 2016 when the last pump needed to be repaired, could you just elaborate a little bit, either Drew or I don't know, Jeff or whoever it would be, regarding the issues that arose in trying to complete the prior repair?
I can speak to that some. The last pump that we did, or the other large pump, was bid in 2012 or 2013 to try to kind of restore it to its original state. These pumps pretty much went out of style the day after we bought them, so they're not made anymore. We can't buy a new one. And
we bought a beta.
On the shelf. Yeah. And there are no parts on the shelf, so we put a spec together to kind of rebuild it, to try to restore it to its original condition. General Pump did that work. They did what we asked. We reinstalled it, and by 2 years later, the pump couldn't be used because it was making so much noise, and it was having other issues. And at that point, we had Flolo take it away and look at it, and they repaired it fully. And the difference is, this is us kind of guessing what needs to be done versus what we propose to do here is have Flolo take it apart, look at it, decide what they would recommend needed to be done. But just by having them take it to their shop and disassemble it, we're already $10,000 into the process. So it doesn't, in my mind, make a lot of sense to have them reassemble it, put it back, and then bid out the work.
Thank you. It makes sense.
Thanks, Jeff. Have we worked with them before? Besides what you just described, have they done other work for us?
Yes, Flolo's our go-to company when we need an expert in our pumps. They're the ones who respond to our emergency calls and have done a lot of work for us.
Okay.
I just wanted to say thanks for explaining that, because I think normally, we'd like to see a competitive bid out there. We like to see the bids. So it's great when you have an explanation that makes sense. And I was under the impression that Flolo had done work for us before, and we knew their caliber of work and that they understand our pump mechanisms pretty well. So it makes sense. Thank you.
My question is, what steps, if any, can we take, or can Flolo recommend steps so that we don't find ourselves in a position where we're trying to repair or replace pump pieces that have gone out of style? Or is that just something that is par for the course with these kind of products?
So this pump station was built in I think the early 80s, and the style of pump station where the pumps actually sit in a dry well, and then the impeller is down in the wet well where the sewage is and pumps the sewage from there. That, like I said, that went out of style about 2 years later. So they don't even make this kind of pump station anymore. I know Jake and George had looked at maybe altering the design of the whole station to accommodate modern pumps. And the cost of that was just too much to recommend. So now we're at a point where we've already invested in 2 of the 3 pumps, and this third one has been sitting out, and we've been a little afraid, that it's going to need repairs. And this the Tangley Oaks lift station serves about 200 homes. Some of our other lift stations that we've done work on serve 6 homes, 8 homes. So this is a much bigger, a more critical part of what we do. So we trust Flolo. They did a good job for us in the past, and the idea is they'll put this together, and it'll be fine for the rest of, as long as any of us are still here.
Jeff, could you also, for the boards, just since most of them don't spend a lot of time in pump lift stations, thankfully, but could you describe why there's more than one pump and the purpose of the multiple units there, and how that really functions?
Yeah, the purpose is simple redundancy. Like I said, this is a critical piece of our infrastructure. If this station were to not work, we would have no way to, get the sewage away from Tangley Oaks. And that's, some of the smaller stations, if they broke and we didn't have enough pumps to run them, we could put the truck out there and we could suck them up and we could keep up with the flow. No chance at Tangley Oaks. So there's 2 large pumps and 1 small pump at Tangley Oaks. Generally, it can run with 1 pump, any 1 pump out of service, but it does struggle, I think, with larger storms if it just has 1 large and the small pump. So we like to keep both the large pumps always operational. And if you ever were to lose both large pumps, we would have a major problem. So we're trying to minimize the time that this pump is out of service, also with this way of doing the contract with Flolo, and have both pumps working for the foreseeable future.
And the pumps cycle, Jeff, you want to mention that too?
Oh, yeah, they take turns so that you don't have 1 pump that just hasn't been used forever. So they're programmed to cycle through all 3 pumps at different times and keep them operating.
And Jeff, once Flolo takes a look at the pump, once they take it out and kind of pull apart and to see what's going on with it, will we get a schedule kind of the costs that they think are associated with fixing it, and then a time frame?
Yes, and I've been talking to them. There's a couple of hard to get parts that they're already trying to locate in anticipation of this happening, that they would probably order right away, like the impeller for the pump, it sounds like the propeller, that pushes the sewage through the pipes. That's a very important piece that we're pretty sure needs to be replaced. So we're comfortable ordering that soon, and it just, you never know exactly the timing. We're looking at probably 6 weeks out of service. But the idea is to do it as quickly as we can.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Any more questions, guys? Okay. Okay, hearing no questions, clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Ryder.
Aye.
Trustee Ankerman.
Aye.
Trustee Briand.
Aye.
Trustee Fisher.
Aye.
Trustee Marquis.
Aye.
And Trustee Rappin.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is item 17, our trustees' report. Do any trustees wish to make a report tonight? And I hear no report. And thank you. Moving on to item 18, executive session. And we do not have an executive session tonight, thank you. Next is item number 19, our adjournment, and therefore I will welcome a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Happy
Okay, happy Valentine's. Bye, everybody.
Valentine's.
Thank you.